Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Green Millstone, who all learned this truth from and rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom. Come to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm going to entitle this one, Prophecies Will Come to Pass, even if they don't believe. And who are the unbelievers? The ones that keep denying Jacob's trouble. They keep denying that America's going to be destroyed. They keep denying that the MOTB is the microseahib, the charagma, written about in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16, is the 2/3 of the nation of Israel that comprise of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American and Israelite foreigners. They may look like the heathens, but ultimately their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because you're going to have a lot of speckled birds that look like the other heathen nations, but ultimately their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because the nation of Israel was scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. So you're going to have Israelites coming looking in all shapes, forms, and colors. You know, this isn't a black thing, a brown thing. No. This is if this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding resonates within your spirit, because it's only going to resonate if you're an Israelite. If you're a heathen, this truth isn't for you. You know, a Edomite, a self-proclaimed white man, you know, an Indian. You know, this truth is only for the nation of Israel. But the main ones come against the prophecies, they come against the prophets, are our own people. They're the main ones that deny that America's going to be destroyed, that there's going to be a Jacob's trouble, because ultimately they don't want this place to end, because right here in the mother of all harlots, America, Babylon the Great, this is where the nation of Israel can fulfill the lust of the flesh, be in that spirit, like Aleister Crowley, that spirit of do as thou wilt, you know, doing their own thing, being moles, you know, doing the alphabet agenda, being feminists, being hoes, you know, being pimps, being drug dealers. This is what the nation of Israel loves to do. You know, the 2/3, because ultimately, if they was to come into the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and truly repent, they would have to leave all that worldly shit in the past. But they're not willing to do that, because they don't want to take accountability. That's why they're the main ones that come against the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. True wisdom of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, because it condemns the way they're living. It calls out their bullshit, and they don't like that. They don't like that light being shined on them, because it exposes their wickedness. This is the main reason why they come against the prophets, because if America was to end, and you know, all the wickedness that they love to do would cease to exist. You know, because ultimately when this place gets destroyed by the missiles here in America, 2/3 of the nation of Israel are going to be wiped out. But they will be brought back in the kingdom of heaven through the loins of the elect. You know, they're going to be the children of the elect, because majority of the nation of Israel, they're not going to get the truth on this side. That's why they scoff, they mock, they laugh at the prophets. You know, they're the main ones that love to come against the man of the Lord. You know, because ultimately this truth, you know, it wasn't meant for them. You know, it was only meant for the elect. You know, the 1/3, starting with the 144,000 and that large multitude. You know, the rest of the nation of Israel, they're not meant to get it, because ultimately Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai put it upon their spirit to not receive it. That's why they're asleep. They're in that spirit of slumber, in that spirit of hoping that America's going to be restored, and that spirit of mirth. But us that are in the know, that have been given the eyesight to see that this place is falling and is going to be destroyed, we know that this place doesn't have long. We can see the prophecies, because they're playing to the elect. But to the rest of the nation of Israel, they're not playing. That's why they're unbelievers. Ultimately, they're going to have to die in their unbelief, because, you know, you can't reject the truth, especially if it wasn't given unto you, you know, because it was only given unto the elect. That's why a majority of the nation of Israel can't receive it. That's why a lot of us, when we came into this truth, we used to tell our family members, you know, our friends that we used to have in the world, you You might have told your wife or your girlfriend, but what did they ultimately do is reject the truth, because it wasn't given unto everybody to receive the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. It was only given unto the elect, and those are truly the only ones who are going to receive the prophecies, the proper breakdowns, and believe in it. Believe in Yahweh Shem Shai and have faith, fearing the Lord. Only the elect are gonna do that. Just because these 2/3 don't believe, it doesn't mean that the prophecies aren't going to come to pass. This is Ezekiel chapter 12 and verse 21. And the word of the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai, came unto me saying, verse 22, Son of man, what is that proverb that ye have in the land of Israel, saying, the days are prolonged and every vision faileth? That's the proverb that these 2/3 love to use when it comes to the prophecies, loving to say that these prophecies are never going to come to pass, that my grandparents been saying that, my great-great-grandparents been saying that the world's going to end, that it's going to be destroyed. So, nation of Israel, they're in that same mindset. Just like in the ancient, during the ancient, days, thousands of years ago, they were in that same spirit. When the ancient prophets were prophesying unto the nation of Israel, they kept telling the prophets, no, that's not going to come to pass. That's why they were in that spirit of mirth, the spirit of feasting, eating, drinking, and marrying, because they never believed that the prophecies were going to come to pass. But that's ultimately when that great destruction took them suddenly, when they least expected. Because they love to say that it's never going to come to pass, that you've been saying that America's going to be destroyed. You've been saying that there's going to be a micro sea hit, that there's going to be a Jacob's trouble, that there's going to be a martial law, a famine. But it's not happening. But now that the prophecies are playing right in front of everybody's eyes, now it's evident that all those prophecies are very close. Verse 23, tell them therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say unto them, the days are at hand, and the effect of every vision. So all that scoffing and mocking, saying that the prophecies aren't going to come to pass, that what the men of the Lord are speaking is false doctrine, that we're false prophets. Yahweh Shem Shai is gonna make all those proverbs to cease, because ultimately all these prophecies are at hand. We see everything that's going around the world, from Donald Trump putting these tariffs on all these different countries, that's drying up the shipments being sent to the United States. We all know that that's going to lead to all these shelves on all these different grocery stores, these different businesses that rely on China for their shipments. So if there's no shipments coming in, what is that going to lead to? That's going to lead to all these different shelves on these different groceries being empty, no food, and eventually that's going to lead to a famine. But these 2/3 still don't believe it, even though it's happening right in front of their eyes. That's how asleep they are. That's how you know is Yahweh Shem Shai had to put a spirit on the 2/3 to not see it, even though it's happening right in front of their eyes. Verse 24, for there shall be no more any vain vision, nor flattering divination within the house of Israel. And that's what the 2/3 love to do. They love to use these false prophecies, saying that America's going to be healed, that everything's going to go back to normal, that gas is going to go back to $1.50, eggs, $1 a dozen eggs. But no, all these false divinations, especially in these Christian churches, they love to push prosperity doctrine in these other Israelite camps, that America's going to be okay, that it's okay to build. No, this place is going to be destroyed, and that's what these 2/3 don't get. And just because their unbelief, they love to scoff and mock at the prophecies that they're not going to come to pass, Yahweh Shem Shai is going to put an end to all that. He's gonna shut off the internet. He's going to allow Jacob's trouble to start. And all these Christian churches, they've been pushing false doctrines on their people, these other Israelite camps. They're going to know that, their congregation, that their leaders were bullshitting, that they really weren't preaching to the choir the truth. And that's going to lead to have a lot of blood on their hands. A lot of these Israelite camp leaders and these Christian pastors, they're going to be sought after. Their congregations are going to be looking for them, because ultimately they were being lied to, that America was going to be healed, that there wasn't going to be no Jacob's trouble, that the MOTB wasn't a microchip. These are all questions that these 2/3 Israelites are going to have, but they're not going to have the answers for them, because ultimately when they had the time to repent and turn back to Yahweh Shemi Shai, they were out here bullshitting around, eating, marrying, drinking, worried about the NFL, consumed with the bread and circus, with the cares of the world. Verse 25, for I am the Lord, Yahweh Shemi Shai, I will speak, and the word that I shall speak shall come to pass. That's right. Because ultimately Yahweh Shemi Shai already wrote everything that's going to happen upon the planet Earth, but it already happened in the heavens, but now it has to play out in the third dimension. And how is Yahweh Shemi Shai speaking to the world? He's speaking to the world by his prophets, because the prophets are the mouthpiece of Yahweh Shemi Shai, because a lot of these Israelites, they want the Most High to come down and talk to them directly. But no, that already happened in the time of Moses. And what did the nation of Israel do? They wanted no smoke. That's why there's always been a mediator. Right now, our mediator is Yahweh Shai, because Yahweh, the Most High, put us away. And ultimately, the only way back to the Heavenly Father was through Yahweh Shai. And that's another thing that these other Israelite camps aren't pushing. They're not pushing Yahweh Shai. They're not pushing that the only way out of this is through Yahweh Shai, being covered by his blood, being saved and delivered by Yahweh Shai. Because a lot of these camps and these other Israelite camps, these Christian churches, they think that they can go directly to the Most High Yahweh, but no, you got to go through Yahweh Shai. Right here, and it shall be no more prolonged. For in your days, O rebellious house, will I say the word, and will perform it, said the Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai. So all these Israelites, these 2/3 that keep denying that America's going to be destroyed, they keep denying that there's going to be a Jacob's trouble, they keep denying that there's going to be a MOTB and there's going to be the micro-CHIP. Ultimately, Yahweh Shemi Shai is putting a stop to that now, because all these different prophecies that the men of the Lord have been prophesying from our elders and apostles, the elder bishops on down, they're coming to pass. And back then, they were calling our elders and apostles, the elder bishops, crazy, because back in the 90s, America was doing good. So if you were telling people that America was going to collapse, they would look at you crazy. But now they're starting to see that it is not so crazy after all. But still, they're still not going to believe, because ultimately these 2/3 aren't meant to believe. Verse 26, again the Lord of Yahweh Shemi Shai came to me, saying, verse 27, Son of man, behold, they of the house of Israel say, the vision that he seeth is far many days to come, or for many days to come, and he prophesied of the times that are far off. And that's what our people love to say, that everything that we're saying is decades, hundreds of years away, thousands of years away. But no, the time is now. All the prophecies are speaking loud and clear, but it's only going to be evident to the elect. The rest of these 2/3, they're not meant to get it. They were blinded by Yahweh Shemi Shai, like it says in Isaiah 29 and verse 10. Yahweh Shemi Shai put that spirit of deep sleep, that spirit of deep slumber, to not wake up, because ultimately he wants to destroy it. He doesn't want them to get it, and that's why they scoff, they mock. But just because they're unbelief, it doesn't mean it's not going to come to pass. It's going to come to pass. Verse 28, therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai, there shall none of my words be prolonged anymore, but the word which I have spoken shall be done, said the Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai. And that's what's happening. The Lord Yahweh Shemi Shai is making all these prophecies happen. The prophecies are speaking loud and clear, but they're only going to be heard by the only ones who are going to hear are going to be the elect. These 2/3 aren't hearing the trumpet being sounded on the highways and byways. You know, when they come across GMS on their YouTube or maybe even on the social media, they scroll past it to watch some folly on TikTok or on Netflix. Ultimately because they're really scared. They don't want to come in terms with reality of what's really going on around the world. Because ultimately then they're gonna have to get right and seek Yahweh Shema Shah, but they're not gonna do it. They're gonna do it when it's too late. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 2. And the Lord Yahweh Shema Shah answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. That's right, this vision is plain unto the elect, but to the rest of these 2/3, these Israelites, they're in a hedonistic way of mind. It's not plain to them. That's why they can't get it. That's why they stumble upon the breakdowns. They stumble upon what the proper breakdown of the MOTB is. You know, they tell their congregation that it's sin, that is white women, that is the image of Caesar Borgia, that is an embargo. These are all false doctrine that these Israelites are pushing because it's not plain to them. It's not plain to the 2/3, because ultimately they're in that carnal way of thinking, just like Esau. You know, but to the elect, they're gonna run with the prophecy. They're gonna do what was commanded by Yahweh Shema Shai. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. And the vision is all the visions that were spoken about the ancient prophets. They're happening right now. They're speaking loud and clear, but it's only going to be meant to be heard to the elect. The rest of these 2/3, they're not going to hear. They're gonna keep unbelieving until they get hit by those missiles. You know, they're gonna keep denying it. But just because they're denying it, it doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, because they keep saying that it's far off. Y'all been saying that for years, that it's never gonna happen. You know, because it's tarrying, but now it's happening. This is Romans chapter 3 and verse 3. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of Yahweh Shema Shah without effect? That's right. You know, what if 2/3 don't believe? Does that mean that all these prophecies, the visions spoken about the prophets, that the MOTB is the micro seed? Does that mean it's not going to happen just because the 2/3 don't unbelieve? No, it's still going to happen, because ultimately Yahweh Shema Shah already spoke it. He already wrote it before the foundations of the earth. But now it's just playing out in the third dimension. This is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 3. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts. Verse 4, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. That's what these 2/3 Israelites love to say. That everything is okay, that everything is going to keep on continuing just like before. You know, we're going to keep working these 9 to 5s, keep paying these bills, keep going to these bread and circus, keep watching TMZ and World Star Hip Hop. You know, this is the mindset of Jake, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, that America is going to continue on like this forever. But no, this place is clearly collapsing, and it's on the verge of being destroyed. That's ultimately why Jake's going to be caught up like a thief in the night, because they're too set on their leads. They're too comfortable with here in America. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 1. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Verse 2, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. So the elect are in the know, you know, to keep an eye out for these prophecies. But these 2/3, they're not keeping an eye out, because ultimately they don't believe. They don't believe that it's going to happen. And in their mindset, if I don't believe, then it's not going to come to pass. You know, I'm not going to listen to what those Israelites, those black Israelites are saying on the street corners. You know, they're crazy. But when it's all said and done and the prophecies start to happen, then they're going to think back to what the prophets were saying, telling them to repent, turn back, because, you know, there was an imminent destruction coming upon America. Then they're going to know that a prophet was among them. Verse 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So right now, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're in peace and safety. They're chilling. They're, you know, even though they're catching hell, these prices are keep on increasing. You know, they're still chilling. Yeah, they can still go to their 9 to 5s, go to the club on the weekends. You know, go to the bar and grab a drink, get some food. They think that they're in a good case, but ultimately, when this place collapses and the MOTB gets implemented, and everybody has to take that MOTB to be able to buy and eat, a majority of the 2/3 are going to take it, and then they're still thinking that they're going to be chilling. But that's when Yahweh Shai is going to crack the skies open and then destroy this place with fire. You know, but that's pretty much the point. Praises is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who are learning this truth from the who will. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, the rest of the third, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom.